quite honored to have been invited by the Association for the Study of Classical African Civilizations, and I said it right, and the Shrine of the Black Madonna to join you this evening here in Atlanta to talk about racism and black mental health. And somebody might say, why do we have to talk about racism? And what has that got to do with any kind of mental health or even black mental health? But I say that there is no more important topic than the topic of racism, not just for Atlanta, not just for the area of the world that we call the United States. But racism is a dynamic that impacts the entire world, the known universe as we know it here. And racism is the dominant dynamic on this planet. And if we do not understand racism, I might as well quote Mr. Neely Fuller, who says that if you do not understand racism, meaning white supremacy, then everything else that you think you understand will only confuse you. I'll say that again. If you don't understand racism, meaning white supremacy, and I think Mr. Fuller says what it is and exactly how it works, everything else that you think you understand will only confuse you. And I will follow up by focusing on how we have become accustomed to greeting each other. We have become accustomed to greeting each other within the framework of this dynamic of racism. We as black people, as people of African heritage, we greet each other by saying, hey, what's happening? And I maintain that our biggest problem has been that we really didn't understand. So we say what is happening means we didn't really understand what racism was all about. And I see us moving in this final decade of the 20th century into the 21st century with an increased knowledge and understanding very, very, very specifically of racism. And I do believe that with that understanding, we will be able to answer the question of what's happening and bring into being everything that we have envisioned and everything that our ancestors envisioned. It will be because we take our understanding to that level. Now, I read an article, I try to buy a lot of newspapers, and I picked up the Washington Post on the plane, somebody's old Washington Post for today. And I saw an article, a big article in the religious section of the paper. And it was talking about the United Methodist, the Church of Christ, I believe. And they are going to get into a study of racism. And one of the persons within that denomination was talking in this article about how people try to avoid the discussion of racism, try not to get into it. Or like sometimes people say to me, Dr. Welsing, you're still talking about that racism? Because I've been doing it for what, 20 years, right? But this is good if they will get into it deeply, not just try to get black people and white people to love each other. We've been through that phase. See, it has to be taken to another level where white people will get into a discussion of white supremacy and black people will get into a discussion of white supremacy And if there are white people who are interested in justice, then they will talk about the elimination of white supremacy. And black people will certainly know that it is their business. It is our mission on this planet to bring justice. It's just like the mission of parents is to see that the house is run well and that the children are developed in that house. Well, the great creator made black people the mothers and fathers of everybody on this planet. And so we have been taken away from that role of authority and leadership. And the planet is in total and complete chaos. Witness what is going on currently. You see, where people are spending multiple billions of dollars trying to create a war, where at the same time they say that there's not enough money for housing, they can't do anything about the problem of homelessness, they can't do anything about the problem of employment or unemployment, they can't do anything about the problem of children having inadequate educational institutions to go to, but multiple billions, I didn't say millions, I said billions, to spend on the destruction of life. Now, if we needed any more proof, I don't know what it is, that things are turned completely upside down. And they are everything other than what it is that they are supposed to be. And this is where we hit the stage. As I said, God made us the mothers and fathers of all of the people on the planet, from crystal black to white. And it is our responsibility to see that justice is returned to the entire planet, and that all of the planet's people and children are walking in dignity and are highly, highly, highly developed. And then I guess we can go on out to outer galaxies and make certain everything is going on all right there. But here we are with this very great problem in front of us that many people do not want to look at. But we are going to pull up all of the courage that we have. And we're going to ask the Creator in Africa, please bring to our attention everything that was bestowed upon us. And let us use this very great inheritance and endowment. Use all of these talents to increase our understanding and to correct this problem. So now, what is racism? And I talk the same thing over and over again when I'm talking to black people. Somebody said, well, do you say the same thing to white people? They asked me that today. And I said the exact same thing. And I follow what my father said. We used to say to my father, Daddy, why do you say the same thing over and over again? And he said, repetition has its virtue. And here I am admiring saying the same thing that he said. So we're going to go over this again for people who have heard it before and for people who have not heard it. What is racism? In 1967, I met a gentleman named Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. in the District of Columbia. I was a psychiatrist, having completed training in general psychiatry, and I was doing a fellowship in child psychiatry. And I knew that I had to understand racism if I was going to help black people get well, to increase our understanding and to correct this problem. So now, what is racism? And I talk the same thing over and over again when I'm talking to black people. Somebody said, well, do you say the same thing to white people? They asked me that today. And I said the exact same thing. And I follow what my father said. We used to say to my father, Daddy, why do you say the same thing over and over again? And he said, repetition has its virtue. And here I am at my age saying the same thing that he said. So we're going to go over this again for people who have heard it before and for people who have not heard it. What is racism? In 1967, I met a gentleman named Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. in the District of Columbia. I was a psychiatrist, having completed training in general psychiatry, and I was doing a fellowship in child psychiatry. And I knew that I had to understand racism if I was going to help black people get well. We were trained under Freudian psychoanalytic theory, and my brain computer said, even though I had to learn what they were saying, my brain computer said, that does not compute. And even if I tried to use it to help white people or black people, they would look at me as though I was the one in need of care. So I knew that there were other answers to be found, and I was in pursuit of finding those answers, meaning turn the computer on, help me find. And so indeed in 1967 I met Mr. Neely Fuller at a social event. It was a party, people sitting around talking about different ideas. And this man way over in the other corner of the room said, racism is a global system of behavior that people who classify themselves as white have organized so as to maintain control and domination over the people that they classify as non-white. And my brain computer over in this corner heard him over there. I really didn't know him. And my brain computer said, that's it. And so I wanted to talk to him more and find out what was it that he understood. And Neely Fuller, let me go to this blackboard. As they say, one picture is worth 1,000 words. So if the people in the back can't quite see, the people in the front will tell you later what I put on the board. But essentially, Mr. Fuller said it was a system. See, now one thing in this article that I looked at in the newspaper this morning, they were talking about institutional. How many people have heard institutional racism? Well, Neely Fuller said, no, it's above and beyond that, because institutions are lower in organization than a system. And so he said that it was a system, not only was it a local system, that it was global, worldwide. Wherever there were people of color and wherever there were people who classified themselves as white, encountering those people of color. And he said this system functions in all areas of people activity: economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. Now that's everything. See, you can get everything that you want to think about under one of these areas of activity. I could put medicine under education, I could put it under labor, I could put it under law. Depending, I can deal with sex under medicine, okay? So, everything that we think about can come under one of these 9 areas of people activity. And so, when I heard him say that, and that he said it was global, I said, this is a fascinating idea, but why would the people who classify themselves as white, why would they think to do it? See, in little children, this is where you can study little children and become wise. What do they say? A little child shall lead them. Okay? Like I talked to a child in my office and I said, sweetheart, I don't want you to be sad. I want you to feel good and be happy. And an 11-year-old child said to me this week, I don't want to be happy, I want to be serious. You see, heavy. And I said, you are right, sweetheart. Gave that little boy IQ 175, right? But little children know to raise the question why, right? Why, Daddy? Why, Mommy? Why? Until you get tired of hearing it. But the child in its wisdom knows that that is the key to turning on the brain computer. So I said, why? Okay, if this is a system, racism, the R word. Racism meaning white supremacy. It's global. It encompasses everything, but why? And I remember Mr. Fuller said, Francis, you don't really need to understand why. Just understand how this system works. But you know, ladies have their own way to go, right? So I said, no, I got to understand why. Because if I can get down in the nitty-gritty and understand why they do it, that'll put us even further ahead of the game, I believe, in solving this problem. So I put that question in my brain computer. I didn't go into a big laboratory. I didn't go and start developing some statistical data and struggling with chi-square. I just told my laboratory brain computer, work on the question. What does it say? Ask and it shall be open. Ask and it shall be given, or knock and it shall. That's what this question. Why? Knock it. So I was really in my kitchen doing dishes or cooking. This is like months later, still struggling with this answer or working with it. And all of a sudden the brain computer came out with the printout. Patience, wait on the Lord, right? So, what came out of my computer was this, that we are on this planet Earth, 1/10, if not fewer, of the people are white, 9/10 of the people, the vast majority, are black, brown, red, and yellow. The 1/10 keep talking about the genetic inferiority of the 9/10. See, read the newspaper, people. All the material comes in the newspaper because earlier this week, I don't know if you read it in your newspaper here, they reported on a research project done at the University of Chicago where they found out that the majority of white people have negative attitudes about black and others. I could have told them right. I bet they probably used, like probably $350,000 on their project. I could have bought another pair of boots. But they didn't come up with the answer why, but one of the things that was in the newspaper this week was that the majority of white people think black people want to be on welfare, don't want to work, are lazy, and inferior to white people in terms of intelligence. This is 1991. And so I knew that back in the late 60s. So when my brain computer said, well, now these are the demographics on the planet, and the fact that the tiny minority that classifies itself as white and all these other people as non-white, the majority that is referred to as minorities, okay, that this minority is calling this majority genetically inferior. And so then my brain computer said, but wait. White means genetic recessive. And black, brown, red, and And I said, I got it. It's as simple as that, and I wrote the Cress theory. It turned out to be 13 little pages. Not 487 pages in index. No, 13 pages. Very basic. Like Einstein said, really nature is straightforward in the final analysis. Not all that complex. Very straightforward and very beautiful. I said, oh, they're talking about our genetics. That something is wrong with our genetics. But it's their genetics that are recessive.
Right.
That we are genetically dominant. And the fact that we are the vast majority of the people on the planet, after they had circumnavigated the globe starting where in the 15th century, and every place they landed, they found colored people. And the men, to be sure, the white men had sexual contact with these women of color. And if they stayed around 9 months, they found out that all the children looked like their mothers. And they concluded quickly that they could be genetically annihilated. And really, I think that they found that out much, much longer ago. In the days of Greece and Rome, and the Roman Empire, because they were interacting across the Mediterranean with those black people in Africa. And they found that all of those black people were genetically dominant in turn people colored. And then when they traveled all over the world beyond the Mediterranean, they said, we have got a serious problem. That what if these people who are all over this planet, various shades of black, what if those men decided to get in boats and go up here to the area called Europe? You know, we're in the area of the world right now where they used to talk about mongrelization of the races. Didn't they talk about that in this country? In this Georgia? What were they talking about? The fact that black people could cause the entire population of white people to become black. And so they thought to themselves, I'm sure, why we don't want to disappear. See, that can be in a children's book. They sailed in little boats, boys and girls. And they found all of these beautiful people of color everywhere who were very, very powerful. And they could cause the white people to turn black. And they said, oh my, we don't want that. And so they said, well, we will have to work out a means, a methodology to prevent that from happening. So what we must do is to go all over all the world and dominate and control the people of color in all areas of activity, and then we can prevent white genetic annihilation, and we can ensure white genetic survival. Are you with me? This is a workshop, right, guys? Does that make sense? But we didn't understand it. And we have not understood it because under white supremacy they taught us to hate black color, and we were struggling to get rid of it. And it was so powerful we couldn't get rid of it. So we weren't thinking that it was some people that were afraid of being genetically annihilated. But we were trying to get to the point where we could be genetically annihilated. Don't marry anybody darker than yourself. Has everybody heard that? I know this is an advanced class. stick around, yellow, mellow, white, right? Did everybody here learn that? I don't want you to fail white supremacy. See, everybody, all people of color. I lectured in London. Do you think that the black people sitting over there in London know black, stay back, brown, stick around, yellow, mellow? You better believe they know it. Do they know it in Brazil? Yes, they know it. Do they know it in Mexico? Yes, they know it. I was a college student and went to Mexico in 1954. And the people there were talking, the Indian people were talking about, they don't let any Indian, meaning not the highly miscegenated, almost white, but the darker people could never be Miss Mexico. So all over the world, do you think in Asia they know it? You think in Saudi Arabia they know? Yes. Everywhere that people who classify themselves as white have taught their survival necessity. If you're black, stay black, brown, stick around, yellow, mellow, white, right. These are all really like the same color except white. Because these are varying levels of the genetic ability to produce melanin skin pigment. It's a black pigment. If you have a whole lot of it, you're crystal black. A little bit less, you look brown. A little bit less, we'll put in your red. A little bit less yellow. Almost none at all white. So while they were teaching us that these colors and the genetic capacity to produce them was really a horrible thing, on the other side of the track, they were doing something real sneaky. And I come from the south side of Chicago, the ghetto in Chicago, and grew up, I never saw I don't think before I was 16 years old, I didn't think I ever saw white people taking their clothes off trying to get a tan. Until I went to college, and I was the only black girl in my class at Antioch College back in the early 50s. When I got there, they used to say, "Francis, do you know Corey?" And I would say, "No." She'd been there years before. It was Coretta Scott. She had been the one black girl in some class before I got there. I mean, it just turned out interesting history over there. But here I am, the first spring after going to college in the fall. And I was in culture shock for many reasons. But I came back, it was an April day and the sun was bright. And I came back from the cafeteria and these bodies were all over the lawn. I'm cold, right? Like I was freezing in the hotel, but I figured out they had to come up and show me how to turn on the heat. See, Africa, we want heat. But I came back and here are all these bodies, and I actually stood on the wall, really in culture shock. And I'm looking at these people. And it may have taken me about, I hope it didn't take 5 minutes. But then they're sunbathing? Do you understand what I'm saying? And then after the year got into the summer, and then they would say, "See, Francis? Now I'm your color." And I really couldn't figure that out in the 50s. And I couldn't figure it out until the late 60s. That while they were telling us we were ugly, you see, but at that same institution of learning, Antioch College, where I came home in tears one time, "Why did you send me here?" You know, I was in the days when your parents sent you where they wanted you to go. And my mother said to me, "There are some places," how did she put it, like there are only some places where you can get certain things. And somehow I stopped crying. And what she was telling me, Francis, you're on a mission and you have to go and find out what these people are about. And so I realized shower, you know, the group shower and the girls don't, and they would be looking, oh, look at Francis's car. I didn't understand. I've been brought up on this. Blacks stay back, browns stick around, and here they are admiring black. When we were trying to get rid of it, they were trying to produce it. And even when the physicians and the dermatologists said to them, don't go out in the sun like that, you'll get cancer. Time magazine reported several years ago when they did an article on the suntanning parlors that one white person was informed that if they went to the suntan parlor on a regular basis, they would get skin cancer, and the person said, I don't care, at least I'll be a good-looking corpse. Now, they had us over here calling each other Blackie and all kind of names, and causing disruption in families about who's the darkest and who's the lightest. And you all know all of that history, our past history, right? Certainly not our present history. But anyway, we were being taken through all of those changes, and we simply didn't understand that a major envy game was going on. And I wrote about it and talked about it. I was teaching at Howard University College of Medicine, and there came a time I was ready to receive promotion and tenure after teaching there 7 years. And I heard over the grapevine, no, you're not going to get promotion and tenure. I went right into the dean. Could this be true? And he said, yes. And I said, why? And he said, that paper that you wrote. I'd only written one paper, Cress there. Well, what's the matter with it? It doesn't make sense for you to say or imply that white people are envious of black people's color. And I said, but I've got letters from them from all over the world. Which was true. Because when the white people saw me on television talking about it, a lot of white people wrote and said, you're right, I always wished I had color. Now imagine if we knew that 100 years ago. Do you think I would have to stand here talking about black and white? See, mental health is predicated on how much do you love yourself? And how much do you love the reflection of yourself, meaning all the other colored people? See, I'd be out of a job. But no, they taught us the reverse. So that was why we're saying, well, what's happening? What's happening? I hate black and they're sun-tanning. What's happening? So I put that together, and all other kinds of things started falling in place. Like my grandmother used to say when she was teaching us how little children making puzzles. You're 5 years old. Oh, it's too many pieces. We can't possibly. My grandmother would say, relax. And put all the straight edge pieces over here on this side of the table. She was saying, Francis, establish the context. Once you establish context, everything else you can put in place. If you never establish context, then you are into nonsense. See, I'm going to tell you about why we don't look like we do too well academically. Because everybody who takes the IQ test and understands, they understand white supremacy. That's their system. And they understand what is what and what is what. And they didn't teach us that. So we're stumbling around and our brain computer is not making logic. I'm telling you, line up and understand white supremacy, you you watch your IQ jump up to 275 overnight. So what did I start understanding? Because I had asked the question when I was a very young child, why? I asked my grandmother again. They were talking about a black man having been lynched. It was reported in the black newspaper in Chicago, so my parents and grandmother standing around talking in hushed tones. So the child who's not supposed to be in on the discussion, well, why would they do it? And my grandmother said, well, some people just have to act ugly. And it wasn't until the 70s that I put it together after having put this together. Oh, I know why they had to lynch and castrate black men. Why, it's perfectly logical. If they are concerned about genetic survival, castration is an attack on the male genitalia and specifically on the testicles, right? Are you all into this? Yeah. Everybody does know what this is. So if there was a conscious or subconscious concern about white genetic annihilation or preventing white genetic survival, it will occur consciously and or subconsciously to attack the possessor of the most powerful genetic material. See, black people, we are the possessors of most of the melanin. So we have the greatest potential to cause white genetic annihilation. And so therefore the attack on black people, we can't even talk about lynching and castration right now. It's so disturbing. But what you put on that is, why did they do it? And once you get the answer to why, then you can relax and discuss the matter. You see, because black men in their time, some black men have shot white men. Some black men have stabbed white men. Some black men may have punched a white man. Think Frederick Douglass punched his slave master. But there's no report of black men tampering with white men's genitals. I saw somebody taking a baby out. I hope I'm not talking. You see, so somebody can do a PhD dissertation on why black men don't have to be bothered about white man's genitals. Because they're not afraid of it. No. No big deal. See, this is all relevant. I see some people saying, oh. But no, this is very relevant. Because a mother reported to me that her little 5-year-old was in a predominantly white school, and the child came home, black male child, 5 or 6 years of age, came home and told his mother, because it's, 1 or 2 little black children, everybody else is white. So the little children had gone swimming or they were in the shower. And the little boy told his mother that a little boy, Billy, and the mother was, he's black or white? Finding out what's happening here. So the little white boy, the little black boy told his mother, the little white boy said, you have a big penis. The mother was stunned. This is little children dialoguing about who has the biggest penis. The little white boy raising an issue, right? So the mother picked herself up off the kitchen floor, and she said, well, what did you say? So So the child is going on, putting on his sneakers or taking them off or something, no big deal. He said, I told him all black boys have big penis. See, now there are people who may not understand how relevant this discussion is. But the discussion of who has the biggest penis is an ongoing discussion. And there is a reason that it is an ongoing discussion. A 5-year-old can say, well, I don't see why you keep raising the question, get 100 white men, 100 black men, and a tape measure and settle it. But I say that white people continuing to raise that question because black men don't go in the workplace talking about who has the biggest penis. But the concern at one level may be about size, but I say the other deeper concern is about the power of the genetic material that is in the testicles that exits through the phallus. And if you don't understand, somebody ought to say, do you know that in this area of the world called the United States, the highest rate of incarceration on the planet? And do you know who is there out of all proportion to their numbers in the population? The black male. 20% of whom are in prison, 10% of whom, 3% of whom are in the colleges. So if you want to deeply understand what's happening, it is because of the concern about the genetic power and the power to cause white genetic annihilation. That is causing that. For example, I also thought about justifiable homicide. What is that? What is it? Okay, this is smart class. Justifiable homicide, the exact definition of it, has to be when a white male in uniform kills a non-white male. Because there's nothing on record of a black man in uniform ever killing a white man and saying, oh, I thought he had a weapon. No instances whatsoever. Does that mean that it's because the black man can see better? Or something else deeper is going on? I say something else deeper is going on. That I thought he had a weapon and so therefore I know he's 14. I didn't know it at the time, but he's dead. Or he's 34, I thought he had a weapon, he's dead. Or he's 24, I thought he had a weapon, he's dead. Or he's 54, I thought he had a weapon, and he's dead. Well, he did have a weapon. But he didn't have a gun, or he didn't have a gun. And by simply talking about it, you can win an election. Willie Horton. 2 words are more important than $1 million. Why? Because Willie Horton was a black man that Michael Dukakis let out of prison who subsequently raped a white woman. And all they had to do is keep talking about Michael Dukakis let out Willie Horton, Michael Dukakis let out Willie Horton, and all the antennas started beeping, white genetic annihilation, and the election was won. But understanding this, I also understood that the white brain computer collectively said, uh-oh, he has a weapon that can annihilate me. I must create weapon can do same thing. This is the front view of the male genitalia. If we look at it laterally, don't get offended, gentlemen, this is just diagrammatic. Turn this around. around 90 degrees and you have this. And what is that? It's a gun. And what do they call it in the white supremacy culture? The great equalizer. See, did you ever say, why do they call it the great equalizer? Meaning, if my genetic material does not allow me to cause his annihilation, I must create something to help me. And so I invent the gun. And it's worn on the hip at the same level as the genitals. Need I say more? So after we leave here today, everybody, instead of saying, what's happening? You greet other black people by saying, you do know what's happening, don't you? White supremacy is, and you get over the shock that integration won't be possible under white supremacy. Are there ushers available to pick up the people? Why isn't integration possible? See, we get deeply into the story of the great social scientist Dr. Martin Luther King. He gave his life behind his hypothesis. He said, I think the answer to racism is love and nonviolence. And this is certainly laudable. But if there are people who are concerned about genetic annihilation, what will happen when love goes into the area of sex? And you take the 9/10 people of color, black, brown, red, and yellow, and mix them with the 1/10 white, and everybody's loving. And white will then what? Disappear. So they said, I'm sorry, Dr. King. We know you're talking about nonviolence. But you don't really understand us. As quiet as it's kept, we are talking about white genetic survival. See, the disappointed vibe just grunts. We gotta get over that, people. You mean to tell me we're not I wish it were possible, meaning that everybody could love. But if people are talking about something else, see, when you respect yourself, when somebody else comes on the scene saying something different than you're saying, your respect for yourself causes you to listen and to respect them. So if the Klan comes along and says, I'm talking about white survival, don't go into some hate act with a picket sign. Say, oh, okay, well, why does Welsing explain that? Or the Nazis said, no. Aryan nations, white. We're killing the black people and the Semites. Now, I'm not going to say, well, go ahead, but I'm going to say, now, don't do anything to me or to us. But I understand what you're saying. You're telling me you're afraid. And so then we go back to look and see what they did. Here's the male genitals, and as the brain produces an abstract of that, you have a cross. Did you ever wonder why they burned the cross on a black person's lawn? Oh, that's just something they do. No, they're telling you. Your genitals can destroy me, so I'm going to what? Destroy you. So at this moment, let me advocate for this nice audience. Don't go yelling and screaming and picketing when somebody says they want to talk about white supremacy. Invite them to try. And let them go into infinite detail. So you would like to, here you have a platform, or somewhere you have a platform, go to the church and talk about what you believe, and we will listen with respect.
That's right.
Now you shouldn't be thinking, no. Listen and say, well, I don't agree, I understand, I don't agree with what you think you must do. But now I understand you. In Germany, they were talking about white supremacy, white genetic survival, and they had a swastika. And you take the little wings off of that, and you back at the cross. And this is what that means to them. Onward, Christian soldier, marching as to war, with the cross of Jesus, just us. You do know Jesus was a black man. Start talking about with the cross of Jesus up in front, meaning we've got this in our mind. That black man's genitals. We got to keep this under control by whatever necessary means. See how quiet it is? But we're going to get accustomed to thinking and talking because why? We have reached the end point. We ought to have reached the end point that anybody with IQ above 0 ought to see that we have been asking for a change in behavior for a very long time. And so it's now time for us to respect ourselves and hear people when they say, we can't change. We can refine and modify, but we can't change. Now, yes, we can get a certain number of white men we will allow to relate to white ladies to fool the rest. But we are about the business of white genetic survival. Which means then that it's as though we are at a chessboard. And in the game of chess, that's a very wonderful analogy to racism, white supremacy. Because in the game of chess, white always moves first. Chess is a game of war. I didn't design it that way before 100 years ago. Black used to move first and then white would move first, but they said, no, it's more appropriate for the way things are going now. That white always moves first. So white is playing offense, defense, and black is playing defense, offense. And it is a game about the white king checkmating the black king. In case you didn't know. It's not just about winning. It's not just about checkmate. The game is based on what the first move is. And the first move is the white side of the chessboard moving. So understanding all of that, one Sunday, it was very quiet in the District of Columbia. When it's quiet, you can think. That's why they have loud music for us. You see, so it's so much sound stimulation that the brain computer goes into complete shutdown. But then they'll say, this is your soul station. This noise is to help keep you in oppression, and I'll addict you to it. Because I'll make your living conditions so horrible, and since you haven't figured it out, then you'll be trying to get away from the reality with sound or drugs or alcohol or something. But I'm here to tell you that quiet is what the brain-computer needs. You see, or some quiet rhythmic music. So I said, that's white music, no, quiet. Black people in Africa set up those tone scales. So not a lot of noise. But I said, quiet, oh, my brain computer is just humming along. What's happening? And then I said, oh, it was Sunday afternoon and the ball games were going on. So I said, the ball games must have a deeper significance. Put that in the brain computer, and shortly thereafter the brain computer said there are 2 series of ball games in the white supremacy system in culture. But somebody who's never heard me discuss it before, anybody who's heard, don't say it. But anybody who hasn't heard, what are the 2 series of ball games? See, you're looking at it all the time, but what? Mr. Fuller said, you don't understand racism, white supremacy, what it is, and how it works. Everything else that you think you understand will only confuse you. So I'm asking you a question that you're looking at all the time. Are the Falcons playing right now? Who's playing? Oh, they told me. The Saints and the Redskins. Okay? Or the Raiders, right? Who's playing?
Redskins and 49.
Okay, but what are the 2 series of ball games? No, that's a C answer. The 2 series of ball games in the white supremacy culture are big brown and small white. Oh. See, somebody, oh no, this is just sports. Mr. Fuller said all areas of activity, entertainment, that's including sports. Everything is influenced by the dynamic of racism and white supremacy. And so the 2 series of ball games are big brown and small white. What are the big brown? Football, basketball, soccer, bowling. Somebody said earth ball. That big, huge brown ball. Okay, small white, ping pong. Golf, tennis, baseball, huh? Badminton. The clock right here. What does this mean? I told you that the fundamental issue in the culture is not democracy. Oh no, it's about competing economic systems. Yeah. While we have just watched what? The marriage of capitalism and communism, and who's still out in the field? People of color, so we should be black male and black female. And they were in the same school, and they were told this was a democracy, and they read Dick and Jane and Spot and Puff and whatever they're teaching now. And nobody talked to them about white supremacy. And so they say, well, we love each other. And white supremacy starts taking care of business. Saying you are not going to advance on that job. And you are going to be unemployed. And she's saying, I want the refrigerator. You understand? See, none of us need to feel bad. We're not bad people. We're not stupid. We just didn't understand white supremacy. And so, with the level of unemployment or underemployment, and he is feeling he is supposed to be able to do so just, by worship, or even being prepared and being job terminated. All the different little vagaries that go along. So he gets upset and he may eventually leave. And there she is with the children by herself. So then this, we've already accounted for what? The high incidence of failed marriage, the single parent household, because the people think they're functioning in a democracy. They were never told the real game. So here she is, she's by herself, and she's got a male child and a female child. And then the sociologist starts saying, a single parent family is the same. Don't worry about it. Don't worry, it's the same. And we said, oh yes, it's the same. Bears know it's not the same. Birds know. You see, but we're trying. So the little female child, she says, well, I can look at mother and see what she's doing. And the little male child says, where's my mother? What am I supposed to do? Like the predominantly white hospital in Washington called me and said, Dr. Welsing, would you come and talk to our staff? 99% white staff. 99% black patient population in the clinic. Why is it that when we ask the black female child, what is she going to do when she's grown up? And she'll say a beautician, a teacher, a secretary. And the black male child says what? I don't know. I don't know. Why? Because children need models. But white supremacy said, I'm sorry about that, I got to take care of business. So the male child is bewildered, discouraged, he goes to school, his female teachers. It is white teachers. The teacher is looking at him, he's 9 and tall. He might rape me. The black female teacher, like the mother. The mother's all upset here because the father's gone. And she looks at the male child and she thinks, there you go, running like that. She's not a bad person. Everybody is being hit by white supremacy and not understanding what's happening. So the child at school, like I went in a class one time in D.C., and a black teacher and all black children, and the teacher had all the little girls in the first 2 rows. And the little boys were actually in the back throwing potato chips and spitballs at each other. And the poor lady had decided, I'm just going to have to teach those who are ready to learn. You see, without even understanding the dynamics. She wasn't bad. The children are not bad. Like I tell the little children, I've never seen a bad child. I've seen children who are sad. Children who are mad and then the behavior looks bad. Do you know what it is for a little boy not to see his father? Like rather be dead Like this little boy was explaining to me the other day. I know he's gonna get the birthday Christmas presents for me. I know. The mother had told me the father was on drugs. And the little child was trying to fix it and make it right. The mother said he and the father used to be so close. But white supremacy hit the father. And the father was gone. And the mother was upset. And the little boy was going and raising hell at school because his soul was hurt. But he said, it's all right, I don't care. See, that's what little boys will say because they're supposed to be tough. They are socialized, you gotta be strong. His soul was hurting. And I said, sweetheart, now I'm looking at you, and you look like an earth boy to me. But you could be, maybe you did come from one of those galaxies out there, where the people don't have any feelings. But you're an earth boy. I know you're an earth boy. And I know it hurts. You see, and so he looked at me. You see, the children were somebody finally understood how much pain I'm in. And so they take that pain to school. Don't touch me. Get your hands off me, you black you little children are in pain. Somebody comes along, I know what'll help you feel better, man. Just smoke this, just take this. See, that's all the drugs will take the pain of white supremacy off. But it's also a trap. But the little girl, see, that's why we got what? White supremacy is just saying, I got this thing really functioning. Because I'm going to make them depressed. And then I'm going to put some drugs out here that I manufactured in my special laboratory. I've got some substances that I made because I watched little monkeys. I've made this substance where the little monkey will push the button to get the drug. It won't eat until he drops dead. I was in Canada, turned on the television, and they had some scientist who was classifying himself as white, talking about they are concerned about the ethnic difference in drug response. Had a black rat in the cage, and in the next cage a white one. I hope you understand what that's about. Ethno-specific weapons, because I know he's going to be depressed unless he's crazy. I put enough out here to depress him. But I got a little shop set up right here. And then I'm going to say, well, you don't have a job, but now if you sell these drugs, you can make some money. And here's your enforcer. I'm going to give you a gun. So I can get them to kill themselves and kill each other. So we've taken care of that. Little female child, mother's tired and overwhelmed. She never planned that it would be like this. Having read Dick and Jane and Spot and Puff. Looked at the magazines. Supposed to be married. Everybody's supposed to be cooperating together. So the husband's gone, the father's gone, she's got the kids, she's upset. It is not possible to hardly give emotional support and also be the breadwinner. That's why nature says somebody's got to be the primary emotional support and somebody's got to be the primary breadwinner. It doesn't mean that they both can't learn and work, but there's a division of labor in every business. Already established. Father's good, mother's good, but they're under white supremacy and don't realize it. So father's gone and mother's there, and the children are trying to get emotional support. Or if the mother didn't have a job, and she said, I got to get on this welfare. I got to get this little change, because otherwise we're going to starve to death. So she gets that little welfare check, and the rent goes up, and the food prices go up. She said, I got to have another day to try to meet these bills. White supremacy says, good, I got to breed. See, breeding means to produce human beings for the purpose of degrading them. That's what they did to us in the form of slavery phase of white supremacy. So it's 4 of them right now. Or if you work in the Department of Welfare, you say age 23 and 7 children, case after case. Do you understand what I'm saying? 16 years old and 3. But we're getting wise. Not bad people, because the children do not get their lifetime. A little child that I knew, mother and father were both in law school. The child was going to the babysitter every day. So one time I was babysitting, and so the child said to me, Francis, little child, like 6, thank you for your lifetime. Can you imagine? Blew my mind. So lifetime, everybody compute lifetime. Little children have to be held. They have to be held by mature people, little boys and little girls. See, I hear people under white supremacy, boy, get off of my, stop pulling on me. 18 months old. You big enough? You see, it might be the father looking at the little tree, yo, you punk? Because the little boy, you know, punk. See, this is not bad people, this is people in oppression. White supremacy has disrupted all understanding. You see, but little children have to be held, because children come into the world, the most sophisticated of all human beings about human relations. Like somebody, you say, well, what's the closest relationship that human beings can have? The average adult is going to say sexual intercourse. How long does that last? Under the best of circumstances. 60 minutes? No, the little baby is in the womb, in the uterus for what? 9 months. Now don't anybody go home and try to stay in there 9 months. No, but the baby comes into the world knowing what closeness is all about. Really sitting on the lap. And so if it does not get lifetime attention, when it comes out, it's already in distress. Because it knows this is something is wrong. It's no 14-year-old person that can give prolonged lifetime. It's an impossibility. No 17-year-old, no 18-year-old. I'm tired of holding this baby. Somebody take this baby. I gotta go to the party. Like a parent told me one time, a mother who was by herself, and she had decided after the separation occurred that she was going to show her ex-husband that she could make the same salary without him. So it was one little child, bright little girl, who was doing everything right up to this point of disruption. And then the mother started having to work 2 jobs to prove to him she didn't need him. And so the little child had to get up at 4:30 in the morning, then she had to get to the babysitter, and then it would stagger in at the end of the day, and 7 o'clock, and rush dinner so it can get in bed by 8 o'clock in order to get up at 4:30 again. And so the child's little thing about what it means to be a human child just broke down. The child started wetting the bed and, falling apart. So I started talking to this parent, not demeaning the parent, but helping the parent understand this is a human being, it's like a plant. And no matter what we think, the child has its own necessity. She said, wait a minute, I got to help you understand one thing, doctor. I'm a career woman. See, and I got to do all this, but the child has its own necessity. Every human child has its necessity. It's got to have its needs met, its emotional needs met. If we don't meet those emotional needs, the child becomes sex obsessed. Little children start talking about, I gotta have something. Not bad, not immoral. What? Trying to get close. Because if grown-ups didn't get their lifetime, they're still talking about, I gotta have some. At 35, and James Brown said, get on a sex machine and we all hit the baby store. Dependency deprivation. Brought on by white supremacy, because what? If you know anything about Africa, Africa has all that statuary of the mother and the child nursing and sitting on the mother's lap. And they understood that that was a foundation for a nation. So Africa said, the hand that rocks the cradle controls the nation. You see, if the hand doesn't rock the cradle, if it's immature, the nation is going to collapse. I mean, the Catholic Church took over that statuary and started talking about the Madonna and child. But see, we're not stupid and we're not bad. But white supremacy said, look, you don't need to develop, because you are going to be my functional inferiors. Because I'm running white supremacy. And so we have all of this chaos that has developed. You see, it's just like if you remove one father out of a community and all the other fathers are left on the block, the male child may be able to pull his identity together. If you remove all of the males from the block and the child just has females to look at and to hold his hand, and then somebody starts talking, he's got a weak wrist. Well, who held his hand? See, just go around and do a survey sometime and check the risk of the male versus the male and the risk of the female. So white supremacy said, yes, I can produce. See, people do not select their sexuality. You look up and you are inclined in this direction or in the other direction. And I say that we have an epidemic. I gave a paper called, and it's in my book, the ISIS paper, Black Male Passivity, Feminization, Bisexuality, and Homosexuality in the White Supremacy System of thought. And I gave that paper in New Orleans, I guess in 1974. I thought I was going to be lynched. It was all black. You see, but what I was talking about, these are just the dynamics, just like chocolate. You see, just like all the drinks in the white supremacy system are dark brown. Coffee, chocolate, Coke, Pepsi, all the major drinks. Taking dark into the system, just like baseball players. You ever wonder why they chew that tobacco? And spit that dark brown stuff out? That's like saying, see, I'm dark on the inside. Trying to be black. Backing with the black back. So all of these are things that have evolved from white supremacy. But if you take the males out and there are no male models, like some of the country schools in the District of Columbia have reported that there are many male children who do not know how to stand and urinate as men. Why? Where would they learn? It's not on the genes. See, I don't know what your style is here in Atlanta, but we have a lot of male children who are walking around with their jeans down on their bottoms. Do you know what that means symbolically? See, they're teenagers. Who walks around with their pants hanging down on their bottom? No. Little babies. Like they have a load in their diaper and they haven't been changed. Do you understand what I'm saying? And shoes all unlaced. No model. No model. Or hair in curls. Don't anybody feel bad. We are all victims of white supremacy. And white supremacy says, cool, wonderful. Wonderful, because you see, if I can turn the men into women, I don't have to worry about white genetic annihilation. And I think this is a mature audience because look at this. See, male pattern homosexuality is putting penis in mouth or penis in anus. And the mouth and the anus are opposite ends of the gastrointestinal tract. Are you all following me? The gastrointestinal tract, where we put our food, is the way the body is nourished. In medicine, if somebody cannot take something in their mouth, we may give it to them in the anus, so that the large intestines will absorb the nutrients. So when it occurs to somebody, I want a penis in my mouth or a penis in my anus, they are simply saying, I feel an absence of male substance. So the semen goes into the mouth or semen in the anus. Are you all following me? I'm not saying bad, we're just talking about what happens under white supremacy. We didn't have this in Africa. But it was the dominant form of sexual practice in Greece and Rome. Why? I say why because if we look at our map and we see this gigantic continent of Africa, and here's the Mediterranean, here's these little tiny countries called Europe. And I say that these pale men looked over here, these big black men, and they felt deficient. Their descendants are still talking about who has the biggest penis. And I was asked to speak at a predominantly white high school in the District of Columbia. So it was a big library with black and white students, mostly white, and black and white faculty, but they asked me to come and talk about racism. Because it was racial tension. So I said to the white children, look, how many of you think you look better with a tan? All their hands went up. And so I said, I want you to change that, because see, if you don't like the way you look, and you see a black student coming down the hallway with their tan, then you will want to do something negative to the black student, because you wish you had the tan and you don't. And so then I went on to help them look at racism. I said, how many people in the room have wondered who has the biggest penis of black male or white male? All their hands went up. And I said, well, now let's just do a little survey. How many people think the white male has the biggest penis? This is students and faculty. Nobody's hands went up. How many people think the black man has the biggest penis? All the hands went up. See, go do a survey on your job if you're not worried about women. But this is true. I'm not deceiving. So what am I saying is that the white males, with their absence of color, were looking enviously at these black males and feeling deficient. And so they developed the sexual practice of penis in mouth or penis in anus, taking in semen into the gastrointestinal tract. And so then they imposed political powerlessness on black men after we were brought to this area of the world. And so now we have epidemic levels of bisexuality and male homosexuality. See, also developing epidemic levels of female homosexuality. Not because people are bad, we are under a dynamic that we have not understood the nature of its impact. You see, we might as well look at what are the two series of smoking objects in the white supremacy system and culture. I said series.
Little white, big fry. Big fry.
I hear some irritability. See, I told you this was the issue, right? This is the issue. And I told you there are two series of ball games, big brown and small white. And there are also two series of smoking objects. You use them all the time, but you never thought about what it meant. Big brown is cigars, pipes, and whores. And the ads say they taste better. Small white cigarettes. And what are cigarettes called? See, these are what? Phallic symbols. These are the symbols, the balls are the symbols of the testicles, and the smoking objects are symbolic of the phallus. Now, this ought to cure everybody smoking. And what does the white supremacy culture call the cigarette? Fags. Not Francis Welsing calling, go and get your dictionary. Fags meaning what? Effeminate. That small white smoking object compared to the what? Big brown cigar. When white men have sons, what do they hand out? Big brown. I'm a real man. Woman enough to say, well, we were mistaken. The dynamics on this planet are about white supremacy, white genetic survival, and white minority in the field of a majority of people of color. And so the games that are played play this out. Football. Who does the white female say is her ideal mate? Tall, blonde, oh no, dark, and handsome. Okay? So these games with the big brown balls, and what are these called, gentlemen? Balls, anybody? And the culture they keep trying to tell us because they say this is about what? Keep your eye on the ball. What does this mean? That's another way of saying what? White genetic survival prevents white genetic annihilation because they're talking about these balls. But at the same time that there is a concern about white genetic survival, the white female says, my ideal mate is tall, dark, and handsome. And the white male says, sex symbols for me are black stockings, black negligees, and black underwear. And the white female says, when I'm really dressed up at my most sophisticated, I have on my basic black. And the white male says, when I'm dressed to the max, I have black tie and tails. Okay? At the same time that we think it's terrible to be black. So, these ball games is very important where they go. Where does this big brown ball go? Are there some white upright legs at the end of the field? Don't you have to get the ball here in order to score? The basketball goes into a white net. And then you have some little white girls with short dresses dancing here on the side. Is that correct, ladies and gentlemen? See, an old lady asked me the other day, how do you see that? I said, I don't know. But I know I didn't structure these games. Nor did I structure the game that the most powerful white men play, which is what? Golf. We're over here now. Small white series. What do white men say?
Hole in one.
No, I mean, I know it's about a hole in one. But white men say they're not men until they've had sexual intercourse with black women. The standard. Just like the white lady is interested in tall, dark, and handsome. The standard of manhood. And we're the standard of womanhood on the planet. Black ladies. So with the small white ball and a long stick held between the legs and a puck. See, they used to have what? Black men standing behind them, carrying a long stick between legs and hip feet, which is the same thing as this, ladies and gentlemen. This is a ball and this is a stick, whether it's golf or whether it's baseball. So they're trying to get this little ball in a hole. Where? More fundamental. Somebody said in the green. In black Mother Earth. I told some white male bankers that. Way high up in the sky, great big tall building, right? Oh, Dr. Welsing. Then I lost my job. It didn't stop it from being true. Look at the game of billiards. Triangle containing balls. You know what that symbolism means, right? Vaginal orifice, and here are all these balls. A whole lot of colored balls. Take this off, and then long stick and white ball. What is the game about? The white ball knocks who? All of the colored balls off of the table. See, people are doing these things and not realizing that they're playing out white supremacy. And a black person will come along and say, you don't want to be caught behind the 8 ball. white balls. Black people. See, white supremacy is the white ball being left on the table. The most powerful ball, the black one, is knocked under the table after all the lesser balls are under the table. And then the white ball knocks the black ball under the table, and white genetic survival is assured in terms of symbolism. So, what is the point of talking about all of this? See, one can even talk about, you know how the British stand with their umbrella cane and a bowler hat? Big black bowler hat, and here's the umbrella cane. Standing right in front of them. They're just saying they have black umbrella coats, right? They don't, you ever see anybody stand with a white bowler and a white umbrella? Never. See, it's like plain out, I'm the same as the black man. It's just like the prostitutes will tell you. White man says, am I as good as the black man? And she'll say in order to get paid, oh yes. But so what, somebody might say. Or let's go tell you another one. See, Valentine's Day is about to come up, right? And so what do white ladies want for Valentine's? So therefore the black ladies also want chocolate. Preferably a heart-shaped box with a whole lot of chocolate. And they say the darker, the better. See, this is a symbol of love. This is a vaginal orifice. That's an ancient symbol of the vaginal orifice, the Valentine. But she wants chocolate in it. Preferably with nuts. See, that's why they say what? Mr. Or Babe Ruth. See, did you ever figure out why when Hank Aaron was about to break Babe Ruth's record, he received death threats? Why should he receive death threats? It's just a game. No, it's not just a game. See, and they used to play baseball, I'm told, with all black bats or dark brown bats. The man told me the other day, now they're making them out of birch and some light colored wood. No, big long black bat and little white ball. And so the man who could knock them out until Mr. Hank Aaron came along and changed everything, but they called him Babe Ruth, and then they made a candy bar, Baby Ruth, chocolate with nuts. So you can look at the TV and they say, oh, I came to start in the morning and so I get some Folgers in my cup. It's so dark. See, when I was in Germany a long time ago, 1957, the German people had their favorite candy was a little black candy that was made in the shape of a baby. And they called it nigger baby. That was their favorite candy to eat, just like what? Chocolate kisses. See, we were so busy hating ourselves as we were properly instructed to do so. Reading Dick and Jane and Spot and Puff. That we what? Didn't see what was really happening. And if they could fool us and fake us out, I guess it really helped them run the show. Long. But now we are beginning to decode white supremacy and to understand what it is really all about. Why? Not for the point of ridiculing white people, not for the purpose of hating white people or being disrespectful to them. When you sit down to play chess, you're silly if you waste your time criticizing your opponent, particularly if the opponent has won the last 1,000 tournaments. But you just sit there and say, no, how do you do? How do you do? And sit down and play without hate. Play out, you know, I really didn't understand those strategies that you were using. I don't even think I really understood the game up until now. It was just like I was taking a tennis racket on a football field. It's like people look at, well, the home team always wears white in football. Isn't the home team have a white jersey? And the other outsider has on a colored jersey. Same thing in basketball. This is completely passing us by. All of that has very profound significance that is related to white genetic survival. Just like the white side moving first in the game of chess. So now we are understanding why. So how does all of this impact on us? Because I say that the system of racism, first let me give you my definition, that racism is a global behavioral dynamic structured by people who classify themselves as white. It is patterns of perception. That's what that survey by the University of Chicago was. How do you see black people? Perception, logic, thought, speech, action, and emotional response. Whether consciously or subconsciously determined. Practiced in all areas of people activity. I went through those. Economics, education, entertainment, labor law, politics, religion, sex, and war. By people who classify themselves as white. On a planet in which the vast majority of the people are classified as non-white, meaning black, brown, red, and yellow. And on the same planet, the black, brown, red, and yellow people are genetically dominant to all of the white-skinned people. And the behavior is for the goal objective of white genetic survival and to prevent white genetic annihilation. So even as we speak, this is being played out all over the world. I read that Nelson Mandela said the reason that they're mad at Saddam Hussein is because he's brown. But how does this very specifically impact? Causing all the things that we call epidemics, from homicide to teenage pregnancy, to single-parent households, to epidemic levels of male bisexuality and homosexuality and drug addiction. Everything. How does it come into being? that white supremacy, racism as white supremacy is against all non-white people, but is against black people in particular because black people have the greatest genetic potential to cause white genetic annihilation. And of the black people, it is the males who I say are more impacted than the females. What is the reason for that? The reason for it is that men and women are not the same. They can do some of the same things, but they can't do all of the same things. God determined that men would be able to impose sexual intercourse. And females, whether they are white, black, brown, red, or yellow, can only entice. Are there any ladies who don't believe it? Come on, let me see a women's lib lady. I was really Dr. Welsing. I'm only kidding. But no, a man can decide, I'm going to have sexual intercourse with that female. And if she says, no, I'm not interested, he said, well, you better, because I'm going to make you. And I've got this weapon. But the woman, if she says, oh, I really like the way you look, and I have decided that you were going to have sexual intercourse with me today, and he says, I've got the flu, and she says, I don't care. I brought my Uzi. And he said, I really don't feel up to it today, Francis. And I say, you better, if you know what's good for you. So I pull out my Uzi and he gets frightened. And what happens? So women cannot force. Entice is not forcing against one's will. Physiology determines if you frighten a man, you will cause him to lose his erection. So men can impose sexual intercourse. So there's black men that are looked at as having the weapon, the genitalia, the genetic material to cause white genetic annihilation. And so white supremacy, as it is acting out 24 hours a day, puts very extreme pressure. Here's the black male and the black female, they come together, and they say we like each other, we love each other, we're going to get married and set up households. Here he